The Closet Empire. Chapter 1. Invisible with Champagne. Laughter always hits the same when it's aimed at you. It clinks in champagne flutes, ricochets off plaster ceilings, like coins tossed at a street musician, not out of kindness, but to say, "For the love of God, shut up." It slices your skin like a dinner check padded with heritage lettuce and narrative dressing. That night, 5 men in suits, each one dressed like a walking TED Talk titled Success in 60 Seconds, had gathered at a chic little place near the opera. Ties loosened, sleeves rolled, their colognes reeked of fiscal quarter bonuses, and in their hands, glasses of champagne. I used to be able to tell the quality by the direction the bubbles floated. Thank you, wine tasting for slightly bored women of means. But this one smelled different now, acrid, condescending, like vinegar that forgot it once had dreams of being wine. Among them, my husband, Jacques, laughing louder than anyone, conducting the table like a maestro of smugness. And then, like a rusty nail driven into the leg of a stool. She can't even land an internship. And laughter, smooth and circular, like synchronized dolphins on vacation. I sat a little off to the side, technically at another table. Emotionally, on the menu, I pretended I hadn't heard, and they pretended they didn't care that I had. An elegant little masquerade of mutual dishonesty. It wasn't a slip of the tongue, it was a performance. And I was the prop, a living ashtray shaped like a woman's hand. Every man there, part of Jacques' chorus line. They weren't laughing because it was funny. They laughed because, in that room, everything was funny if said by a man wearing a Rolex. I looked at their faces, glowing with the same quiet smugness I once saw on public officials handing my mother a rejection slip in a Soviet-era sweater. "You're doing your best, dear, but we have procedures." Their arrogance wasn't personal, it was just math. The number of zeros in their bonus and the number of cubes in their glass. But the worst part? They didn't ask questions. Not, "So what are you up to these days?" or "How's life?" Because men on stage rarely care what happens in the wings, and that, I knew, was their weak spot. Something old echoed inside me, childhood-shaped and sharp-edged. I was 6 when my father left, said he'd be right back. The suitcase was tiny, like he was popping out for bread, but the door stayed closed. I remember Mom smoking by the window while I stroked the doormat and whispered, "He'll be back. He just needs a minute." A few weeks later, I found his number in the old phone book. Called. Voice shaking. "Daddy, come home. We'll be good now." And he laughed. Not cruel, just that tired laugh of someone who thinks it's adorable that anyone still believes in happy endings. That night I learned, laughter can wound. And the men at this table were laughing, with the same blade. Jacques was in his element. He wasn't just humiliating me. He wanted to make sure I heard every word. To make sure I, his wife, the mother of his child, felt like I was worth less than the breadcrumbs under their overpriced brioche. This wasn't a one-time cruelty. This was a lifestyle. And that's how I knew. He was going to fall. They laughed at my interview, clueless that it had been a sting operation for mid-level execs. They gossiped about the agency that rejected her, not knowing that the same agency had been owned by my holding company for a full year. They signed forms without reading, blissfully unaware that the beneficial owner on those papers was sitting right next to them in a scuffed pair of Zara heels and a dress from last year's H&M. I drank the wine not because I liked it, but because that's what you do. You blend in, you smile, you play the wife. You become the polite background noise to their thunder. But inside me, cogs were turning, like in a Swiss watch, but each tick was a tooth in the engine of vengeance, low gear engaged. I heard my grandfather's voice in my head, a man of steel and sandpaper. When his business collapsed, he didn't rage. He just said, "Power isn't in the scream. It's in the moment you land the hit and make it count." And I knew my moment was coming. Chapter 2. The Storage Room with Secrets. 8 years of marriage taught me one of the ultimate superpowers any woman can have: the perfect poker face. That barely there polite half smile you put on when someone says, "Oh, look, your mascara's doing the abstract art again." And you've got, just for a moment, a hot bowl of soup in one hand, a toddler hanging off your hip, and someone else's fragile ego tucked under the table. I drive an old Renault Clio that sounds like it's arguing with me on every turn. At home? Coupons clipped by hand because that's how we save. And pajamas with no branding because, well, just for around the house. We rent a modest 2-room flat near Porte de Clichy. According to Jacques, it's real comfort. Everything that doesn't look like a catalog of luxury, he romanticizes. Kind of like a toothache. A sign you're alive. In the evenings, when his friends, the kind who confuse dropping by with invading, plop onto the couch for football, Jacques delivers his golden line. "Ma chérie, hurry up. You're like the waitress in the pub." Laughter, high fives, winks. I smile. I clear the empty plates. I shut the kitchen door behind me. Behind that door, I hang up the roll. That's where the offstage scene begins. After the apartment goes quiet, as if someone yelled, "Lights out in the barracks," I awaken. I open the storage room, not secret, no keypad required. Just a plain closet between the canned peas and the packet of spaghetti. Then I switch on 3 monitors, and everything changes. Left screen, map of Duran Technologies. Branches, data centers, logistics hubs. Flashing dots like a Christmas light garland are wired into the company's nervous system. Center screen, dashboard, revenues, churn, project timelines, risk indices I've built brick by brick over 6 years. Think of Tetris. Only the blocks you drop could cost millions. Right screen. The gray zone. Logins, alerts, chat logs they politely assumed were erased. News from the underground where all the spies signed their own indictments. On the table lie my paper, sacred chronicles. Fry's faux, phony business expenses, receipts from conferences where the only speaker was a calculator. Rendezvous off-book meetings, ticket matches, geo-coordinates, unofficial dinner dates. Fuites, leaks, those USB sticks for homework where the data dove out like teenagers through a hotel window. Arge, toxique, toxic HR policies, motivational chats that sounded like death sentences, especially for women after maternity leave. "You're not the you used to be, ma'am. Who even are you now?" Each file has colored tabs with names. Some tags say, "Big talker, slides only." Others, "Whisperer in the smoking room." I don't rush. I'm not a latex-clad Avenger. I'm an accountant with a chainsaw. Every payment is checked, every log reviewed. Boring? Hallelujah, because boring is bulletproof, like the wrong marriage, only not mine. I analyze everything: who sweats most hearing audit, who interrupts at meetings, who looks at their phone when a woman speaks. All of it goes into the system. Body language, hesitations, micro-expressions. Nothing escapes. 6 years ago, I started as a lucky freelancer. But I had the blueprint. Holding companies, options, IP rights. I built them like a Lego city, except no one knew the architect. Notary who always reads page 2. An accountant who never trusts. That team saves companies and slices fat like a Vienna butcher with a cleaver. And Jacques? Jacques lived in a world where a wife was décor, a function, an object, not a subject. He didn't just not know the storage room was my operations center. He couldn't imagine it. He thought I knit blankets or sorted lentils. Well, I do sort, but I sorted betrayal. Funniest part? He never once opened the storage room door. He considered housework beneath him. For me, it was destiny's gift. As he laughed at my waitress speed, I programmed a silent alarm for the day the waitress decided to stage a coup. Tonight is the final countdown. All green indicators are lit. The files are sealed like tombs. On top lies file Board, Zo 1. Auditor's reports, seals, lawyer letters. Next to it, the voting list. Those names that tomorrow will flash yes and switch off the past. Ping. Message from Sarah. Board ready? Documents in place? Meeting tomorrow. I'm on standby. At your command. I lingered over her name. Sarah. One of the few who know. A voice calm as an instruction manual for emergency landings. She got dismissed for being too principled. Now she's my second brain. My so be it. I close the files. Check. Backups exist. Notices scheduled. Regulators. Waiting. Even the little UPS hums in approval. The kitchen smells of cooling soup. In the next room, someone who will tomorrow say, "Pour the beer for the guys," snores away, unaware his beer tomorrow won't be the only thing he gets. I flick the light off. Leave behind the faint glow in the storage room, a light from the future. And I say to myself, quietly, almost businesslike, tomorrow, the masks, they'll fall. Chapter 3. The Candidate by Mistake. 6:30 a.m. The service entrance greeted me with the classic Parisian bouquet. Cheap cleaning fluid, neon lights that make you look dead, and the smell of coffee that tastes like it belongs only in commercials. I was wearing the kind of suit that screams forgettable, unquoted, uninspiring. Perfect. Pinned to my lapel was the badge. Alexandra Durand, candidate. Funny, right? Like Rihanna showing up at karaoke and saying, "Surprise me with my own record deal." My look had been rehearsed. Gray mouse, slightly lost in the corporate jungle. Everything about me whispered, "I'm not a threat. I'm just here to ask where the restroom is." They thought I came begging for a chance. I came to see who I'd be cutting first. The tests were something out of a bad corporate training. How many oranges fill a freight car? And which item resonates with you most? Paperclip, elephant, or office manager? The panel of managers, clichés made flesh. One yawned so wide I thought I'd see his tongue. Another scrolled LinkedIn like he was trying to hire his next self. They looked at me like a typo in Excel. Because I was someone's wife. Automatically -1 point at the gate. Then someone decided to take a swing at humor. Phone buzzed, message lit up, and someone snickered. Seen my wife? What a lightweight. Jacques, of course, king of the evening, owner of my nerves, or so he believed. Laughter spread across the table like cheese on hot pizza. I sat upright. Inside, a funeral march with a chainsaw? They had no clue who I was before the lightweight label. Sorbonne, economics, digital strategy, presentations that could have blown up markets if it weren't for 2 lines on a test. You see, darling, maternity break child, home, what lectures? Your path now, soup and diapers. Ah, yes, and the wet wipes and teary eyes, too. I left his request. I called it choosing family. Ha! It was giving up myself, wrapped in pretty gift paper. They didn't know. But I remembered. Last question at the interview. How do you cope with stress? I nearly laughed. My head was filled not with breathing exercises, but nights. Baby screaming. Jacques is lounging like a statue with a remote in his hand. Do something. I'm tired. I did everything, and then I knew. I was alone. I looked at those men and said, "Stress, I manage." They didn't understand. It wasn't an answer. It was a sentence. Later, I went to the restroom. White tiles, cheap air freshener labeled disappointment. I shed my invisibility suit and pulled on my armor. Chanel. Louboutin. The crisp white blouse you wear when you're not entering a meeting. You're entering a story. Badge. Alexandra Duran, CEO. In the mirror wasn't the scrawny write-off they'd penciled in. It was me, the owner of the game. My fingers skimmed the lapel. The fabric. Armor. No gray, just cold, confident shine. It was time. I walked toward the boardroom, a beat, a flicker of memory, like a YouTube ad you didn't want but remembered anyway. Dress. The simplest one I had. Bare face, child in arms, and a ring in my pocket. White gold, sold at a jewelry boutique between a stationery store and a bakery under the metro. Good, almost unscratched. A pity, though. The salesman. Pity? I smiled, then I cried. Not because I sold the ring, because I bought freedom. From that money, a laptop. Not Apple, just good. Fierce. My second chance. That night, I sat at it. While Jacques was delayed at a meeting, the child slept. I made the first draft, the first spreadsheet, the first dream after all dreams were wrecked. That old presentation, forgotten by everyone, except me. I knew it worked. It only needed to be unleashed. So I began. Nights, fevers, child on lap, exhaustion that smelled like curdled milk and decaf. But I worked, because that night, after the jeweler, I told myself, I will return, but I'll return differently. Chapter 4. Game over. I stepped into the boardroom, and silence slammed in like someone yanked the plug on the sound system. No nods, no waves, just that sharp, fragile pause where all their bravado hung in midair, waiting to deflate. 5 men in matching gray suits froze mid-breath. One's hand shook, another's eye flickered. Only Jacques summoned the courage to speak first. "What are you doing here, and looking like that?" "As the CEO of Duran Technologies," I answered. My voice was calm, tailored, crisp, like a bespoke jacket. I hadn't come for revenge. I'd come to deliver the verdict. I moved to the head of the table, pulled out my tablet. One swipe, and screens lit up. Holding company chart, ownership webs, beneficiary lists. Everywhere. My name, Alexandra Duran. Not wife of, not formerly known as. The cornerstone. "This can't be," someone whispered. "You spent years mocking your own boss," I told Jacques. Imagine the irony of disrespecting corporate culture so openly. He tried to stand. His shoulders resisted as if welded in place. "Is this a prank? Hidden camera somewhere?" "No." I tilted my head slowly. "This is the trap you built. Very carefully." And in that exact moment, when Jacques gasped for air, I remembered. 8 months old. Emma. I arrived home early that night, grocery bags in one hand, a dinosaur backpack dangling from the other. The door didn't lock. Someone forgot. Perfume. Sharp, floral. Not mine. I entered. Shoes at the door that weren't mine. The jacket hung in the hall that wasn't mine. Through the bedroom door, laughter. Female laughter. I opened it. There he was, shirt open, arm around Claire. The same Claire I used to nod at in the lift. The one he mocked as administration's favorite mess-up. Her blouse surrendered hours ago. He looked at me without surprise. "Why are you home?" Not. "I'm sorry." Not. "This isn't what it looks like." Just. "What are you doing here?" Claire bolted, barefoot, grabbed her shoes like someone embarrassed by her resume. Disappeared. I stood there, child in arms, grocery bags in hand. Felt something heavy plunge into my chest like a brick. He stepped up, grabbed my hand. "Don't make a scene. Pull that face off." I have a child in my arms, Jacques, I whispered. You think someone needs you? With a kid and no degree? Without me, you're nothing. Nothing. And then, slap. Sudden. Precision struck. I nearly fell. Emma screamed. He wiped his mouth and walked away to the bathroom like he hadn't just thrown a punch. I stood still, with silence in my mind. A buzz. Nothing. 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 From that night on, I never raised my voice. I planned. Back in the boardroom, they sat as still as pupils caught cheating. You degraded women you were supposed to promote. I started. You leaked data. You buried income. You signed off on ghost contractors. I didn't bring feelings. I brought documents. Slides volleyed. Signatures, photos, audio clips, internal memos. Everything they thought hidden. Everything typed at midnight in anonymized chats. You're bluffing! Jacques spat. His voice cracked like a microphone on 1%. Me? I gave a slight smile. I didn't come with emotion. I came with a notary. Ping. The door opened. 2 plainclothes guards stepped in. You're all dismissed. For serious misconduct. And you, Jacques. I stepped forward. His complexion drained. You're fired, I said. Officially. With severance. Because I follow protocol. He swiped at the tablet like he might cancel the outcome. This cannot... You laughed at me, I said softly. But you didn't notice how you drowned in your own laughter. I removed the wedding ring, the same one I'd sold to buy my first laptop. I placed it on the table, slowly, no words. Game over, and I walked out. Behind me, not just the boardroom, behind me, him. Ahead, silence. In it, structure, power, the blueprint of the future, and strapped to my back, the child for whom I changed from inconvenient to indispensable. Chapter 5. The time has come. The board voted swiftly. No whispers, no appeals. 12 yes, 0 no's, 0 abstentions. Behind that unanimous shout lay months of groundwork, weeks of negotiation, and hundreds of invisible threads. A web I'd woven carefully around the old leadership. Now, it had tightened, like the belt you fasten when it's time. The lawyers pressed activate. Protocols went live. Notices zipped out. Emails, registered letters, system alerts. Passcards revoked. Bank accounts frozen. Server access shut down. Devices anonymized. In 2 hours, Duran Technologies ceased to be their territory. They scrambled like tourists without maps in a foreign city. One called clients, another rang shareholders. A third phoned his wife. Every call was logged. Every email is archived. Every panicked explanation became part of the evidence. We knew they'd flinch. We gave them the chance to slip up. Their parties, the whispering in bars, new partnerships, whispered after midnight, all recorded. The bribes laundered through third parties were traced. Their chat comments that they deleted within seconds, resurrected. All evidence was sent to the prosecutor, the Antitrust Commission, and the securities regulator. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was performing cleansing. Jacques tried to grab the narrative. The next day, he walked into the building without a pass, wearing his usual swagger. The guard smiled, a picture of kindness masking steel. Your pass has been revoked, she said calmly. This must be a mistake. I am vice president, he shot back. You were vice president. As of yesterday, you are not. He stood by the turnstile, the face of someone wondering how the party ended when he was still on the guest list. That very day, his photo vanished from the system. Access locked. He became an external person, a witness, and thus a subject of investigation. Meanwhile, inside the company, a new movement stirred. Walls soaked in fear finally echoed with noise. People who'd been silent for years started speaking. Projects once frozen thawed. Young engineers, once dismissed as too idealistic, were called to the table. The overlooked entered. My office was open, literally. No secretaries, no passes, no appointments only. If you have something to suggest, come in, I said at the town hall meeting. I'm Alexandra Durant, I'm your CEO, and this company is yours again. The applause wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was real. And the storm that swept away the old system? It mellowed, leaving behind space for what comes next. Chapter 6. When Quiet Speaks the Loudest. The office changed, not overnight, no fireworks or fanfare, but drop by drop, like realizing you'd been holding a mug under a leaky tap, and then simply turned it off. Change doesn't roar. It slips in wearing black jeans and no tie. At first, silence. Not the heavy, suffocating kind. Can you hear this hallway? No? Neither can we. But waitful. People paced corridors carefully, as if checking. Is it really safe to lift my head now? They were measuring the air for lower pressure, and if yes, even daring to exhale. I watched. I didn't jump in. I sat in my open office, behind the same desk the former CEO used, but now with no glass walls, no assistant, and no security show, just a cat curled under the monitor. I rescued it later to show. People remain human. Day 1, nearly no visitors. Day 2, 2 sticky notes left on the desk. Got 10 minutes? Need help. Day 3, the assistant appeared. The one written off during maternity leave rewound, with a notebook. May I just shadow you for a bit? I need to remember how to be useful. I nodded, like a seasoned general saying, all right then. That's when it began. I launched a mentorship program, not as a bullet point initiative, but as an invitation. To the unheard, the ignored, the doesn't fit in crowd. They showed up, quiet at first, then with confidence. Dozens of young engineers, analysts, designers, once written off as not a corporate fit. They arrived and brought ideas. Yes, imagine, ideas, a miracle period. I listened, didn't interrupt, didn't say, here's how to do it. For the first time, I allowed myself not just to be a strategist, but a witness to the life I once wanted to build. In this office, where everything whispered of pain and shame just earlier, traces of something else began to appear. Lightness, openness, possibility. I expected a triumph, a takeoff, sparkles, confetti, but no. Instead, I felt a strange calm, not emptiness, no, more like peace, as though I finally exhaled, without screaming, without crying. Just allowed myself a pause, a moment. Sometimes I caught myself searching for Jacques with my eyes, a habit, you know. Like he might storm into the office with a new reproach. But he didn't. His shadow vanished. And each day without his presence made the air freer. I watched the faces. They weren't masks anymore, not bent backs. People started speaking up, laughing without forced politeness, defending ideas, arguing. I recognized myself in them, the woman I used to be before all this. And I realized this was worth everything. Jacques tried the courts. First, unfair dismissal, then damage to reputation. Later, moral harm. He attacked paperwork like he assumed his pen was a rifle. But every claim crashed on documents bearing his own signature. Audio recordings, memoranda, letters, all with his name, signed neat and steady, like a man who never doubted. And that was exactly his downfall. Jacques' lawyer yielded on day 2. The media lit up. Headline, Corporate Baron versus Ex-Wife Genius, or something. And his mother, Madame Bresson, showed up at my reception once. Not in court. No summons. Small, her hair styled like, I lived through the 70s and I liked it. ring of a widow she never removed for 20 years. She sat across from me, handbag in lap. I'm sorry. I didn't see. Or maybe I didn't want to see. I thought he'd make a good husband. My only son. I was afraid you wouldn't let me see Emma. I looked at her. A woman who tried to teach her son strength but never taught him respect. A woman who herself learned endurance and passed that skill on, like a family heirloom. Emma is your granddaughter, and if she wants to see you, she will. Not because you're Jacques' mother, but because you're her granny. She nodded and left, without looking back. Divorce? Fast. No tears. No drama. I initiated. The papers had been ready. I didn't demand alimony. It would have been a humiliation. I didn't need his money. I didn't need his explanations. We signed in the same notary where I had trusts and a fund office. Jacques looked aged, face slack, eyes hollow. "And you've really been running the company all this time?" he asked. I didn't answer. He didn't deserve one. A couple of months later, I spotted him on a billboard. Local electronics chain, phone deals. There he was, in an ill-fitting gray suit, fake smile, slogan, "We picked the best for you." The one who used to sneer at the barista's line now stood behind the till. Irony? Meanwhile, at Durand Technologies, we grew. 2 new patents, green energy and AI logistics. I opened 2 new offices, Lion and Talon. I reinstated ex-employees, people who'd been written off, with a simple letter. "If you'd like to return, we've been waiting." Young women started coming to me, the ones who doubted, who feared they had no chance. We launched a fund, training, reskilling, and discrimination defense. Sometimes I woke up at night, not from fear, from the unexpected quiet. I'd grown used to living on high alert. Now I needed to learn how to just live, as if you are standing amid the wreckage after the blast and suddenly realize you survived. Everything around, you can build from scratch. I survived. The best revenge isn't destruction, it's creation. I didn't get even, I built. I reclaimed their power. Yes, but more importantly, I returned it to the people they called nobody. To the voices they drowned with laughter. To the ones who endured too long, thinking, "This is how it is." Jacques and his friends, now shadows, echoes. We're building, day by day. Not perfectly, not quickly, but honestly. We're reclaiming meaning, control, voice. And if I learned anything, it's this: don't be afraid to be loud. Don't be afraid to say, "This can't go on." Don't be afraid to walk away or stay, but on your terms. Sometimes I think, if back then, that night, when I held Emma and everything blew up, if there'd been one woman who said, "You're not alone," it would have been easier. Not simpler, just easier. So I speak to you now. If you're reading this, know you're not weaker than me. I just one day stopped being afraid. If you're tired, you're not weak. If you're hurting, it's not your fault. If you want to walk away, you have the right. If you want to stay, you have the right too. But don't be silent. Speak up. Write it down. Share. Let another woman see. She is not alone. We have been here. And now, we will always be here.